what it really is and when it was developed. I've always been impressed with the way these cars were developed in the early age of automobiles to go racing. The personalities, the people involved with them was always very interesting to me. So I'm kind of a romantic at heart, believe it or not. When this car became available, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wanted to try and get it. And because it was so significant to racing, it was so significant as one of the absolute forerunners. It was a good example of the French engineering at the time. In the early 20th century, France was really the industrial leader in automobiles. They had the plants, they had the equipment, they had the engineers. They had more serious manufacturers than the rest of the world combined. Our car here in the collection is one of the series. The first was the 7.6 liter, then the 5.6 liter, then this being the L45, it was a 4.5, and then there was a 3 liter later. As the rules changed in racing, they required them to reduce the maximum cubic inches of the engine. So that's why they started out larger and ended smaller. The dual overhead camshaft started in, as I said earlier, in 1911 with the L76 or 7.6. It was a completely new idea that was more efficient, allowed better breathing and so forth for the engines, and continued to be developed and used by other manufacturers as well. They did the dry sump oil system, which was not new, but this may have been one of the first times it was really used in racing. And up until this time, basically the race cars only had rear wheel brakes. This car has all-wheel brakes. They also used semi-elliptical springs in the car. This car is rather unique. It was one of the 4 cars that the French Grand Prix in 1914. If you see photos, it is the car on the far right, which has smaller louvers than the other 3 cars. So we know which car is which, and this is the small louver car. We feel that this car is really one of the premier cars in our collection. It represents the early engineering, early development, the early ideas in racing that became to be commonplace today. Some people call this the great-grandfather of the modern-day race car, and I guess it is in some ways, but rather crude in terms of what we have today. I've always been impressed with what these men were able to do with their hands and their minds. They didn't have computers, they didn't have all the machinery, milling machines and so forth we have now. Handmade, used their brains and built amazing machines that really excited the world.